Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to another horror entry here for this title. One that I originally just didn't really get into when it first came out. I don't remember actually seeing it in the theater, but I believe I'd seen it either on VHS or on cable, when I initially saw it back in the day. But that is for In the Mouth of Madness from 1994, starring Sam Neill, who you no doubt know from Jurassic Park, which came out about a year earlier. Julie Carmen, who I know from Fright Night Part 2, one of my favorite horror sequels, which I believe came out just about maybe 5 or 6 years earlier. Charlton Heston, Jürgen Prochnow, and possibly most notable of all, this is directed by John Carpenter. Now, the synopsis for this film is as follows. An insurance investigator begins discovering that the impact a horror writer's books have on his fans is more than just inspirational. So, that's quite the basic little synopsis there. That doesn't really make it sound interesting at all. So let's dive in a little bit more here with no big spoilers. So anyway, Sam Neill here plays our insurance investigator as he's hired to investigate a disappearance of a horror writer played by Prochnow. Since with his disappearance, his publisher, played by Charlton Heston, stands to, lose some money, so they're possibly going to have to lay some claim on this insurance since they're not going to be able to publish his latest book. So he's hired to investigate. Now, it is explained that this writer is huge. I mean, he outsells Stephen King, has a much larger fan base, much larger reader base, and that fan base is much more devoted and, for lack of a better term, obsessed. So strange happenings are kind of going on, revolving, around his readers, having some interesting public outbursts in anticipation of this new book. So Neill, not being a reader, especially a horror reader, kind of dives into a few of the books to get a handle on who this writer is. And then he kind of discovers some information, hidden within these books where basically eventually he's tasked with Julie Carmen's character to go to a location that he discovered kind of hidden within those books. It indicates the location of a town from the books which doesn't actually exist. It's not really listed on any maps, but he's pinpointed where this is supposed to be. The thought is that maybe the writer is just kind of hiding out in that location. So in their investigation, this is where things truly get bizarre. Even on this road trip, they start seeing some strange things. They start getting lost and somehow find their way to this location, which, though it's not on the map, bears the same name as the town in the book. Now, while they're at this town, there are situations kind of happening which reflect aspects of previous books, and kind of like this wall between what is fiction and what is reality are beginning to overlap, where even as the viewer, it becomes hard to know at certain times what's a hallucination or a dream or what's real or possibly just some sort of like a really large and elaborate publicity stunt. So throughout this investigation, more comes out about this writer, this overlap between what he's writing versus what's being discovered about reality and like the end of times for humanity. In an interesting take, the film starts with Neill being locked up in an asylum against his will, where we get some small roles by John Glover and David Warner, and Neill is just recounting his tale. And by the end of this film, you kind of come full circle with that, almost forgetting how it had started with him describing what had led to him being in this asylum. As we kind of get to see this wrap-up of this story, this truly bizarre insurance investigation turned almost Lovecraftian style show in a film which I initially didn't really get into. I think it's because as I revisited this on Blu-ray the other night, the story kind of takes a little bit to get going. There's a lot of groundwork that they have to lay out. It takes a while for things to truly get unusual as they're laying out this mystery. About 40 minutes of the film, in fact, is just laying a lot of that groundwork. So even though at the time, back in '94, I was a pretty avid reader, a habit that I've been trying to rebuild recently, with that initial slow build over those first 40 minutes, I think I had a really hard time getting into it back then. Not that it was bad, just that it really wasn't memorable to me. It kind of came and went. So sometime over the past couple of years, it showed up on streaming, and I gave it a rewatch, and this time I really got into it quite a bit. I enjoyed it a lot, which is why I actually picked up this Blu-ray so I could add it to my collection. Because even though it has that slow opening, it eventually goes down this dark and twisted road of a very surreal kind of horror story, which is more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest entry for In the Mouth of Madness, starring Sam Neill, Julie Carmen, Charlton Heston, Jürgen Prochnow, and with appearances, like I said earlier, by John Glover, David Warner, Not to mention we get Frances Bay in this one, who you may remember from Seinfeld, as well as Happy Gilmore. We also get Wilhelm von Homburg, who's from Ghostbusters 2 and Die Hard, and Bernie Casey from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Revenge of the Nerds, among many other titles. And of course, it's directed by John Carpenter, which at the time of this video, it is only available on paid rental. But just last summer, I believe it was available on either Tubi or Pluto or some other ad-based service, so keep a lookout in case it ends up coming back to one of those services in the near future. Maybe use that app called Just Watch. It's one that I use to find out where things are streaming. See if it shows up on anything that you have access to. Anyways, that's about all I have for this one. Thanks for coming by and for sticking around to the end, as it really does help out quite a bit, as is liking, subscribing, commenting, and so on. And I will see you in the next one.
This is not me!